From saving a man's life by pulling teeth from his throat to nearly dying 4 times on an operating table, Elizabeth Taylor's existence was more extraordinary than any Hollywood script. The violet-eyed icon had double eyelashes from a genetic mutation, published a best-selling book about her pet chipmunk at age 14, and won her first Oscar for what she called "my tracheotomy" after a life-threatening emergency surgery. Here are 15 things you never knew about Elizabeth Taylor. Fact 1. She had genetic double eyelashes. Elizabeth Taylor was born with one of the most striking genetic anomalies in Hollywood history, a rare condition called dystichiasis that gave her double rows of eyelashes on both her upper and lower eyelids. This wasn't some Hollywood makeup trick or enhancement. It was a genuine genetic mutation caused by changes in the FOX2 gene, which plays a crucial role in how tissues develop during the early stages of human growth in the womb. The condition affects less than 1% of the population worldwide, making Taylor's natural beauty feature extraordinarily rare. While most people have a single row of eyelashes framing each eye, Taylor had thick, dark secondary rows that created an incredibly dramatic and mesmerizing effect that would become one of her most famous physical characteristics throughout her legendary career. The genetic quirk first became apparent when she was just 9 years old during the filming of Lassie Come Home in 1943. A cameraman on set noticed what appeared to be an excessive amount of dark, thick mascara around the young actress's eyes, and actually accused her of wearing too much makeup. When crew members tried to clean off what they assumed was fake enhancement, they discovered to their amazement that the dark, luxurious lashes were completely natural. Her co-star from that early film, Roddy McDowall, later remembered the moment with wonder, asking who else but someone destined for the big screen could possibly have been born with such a distinctive feature. The double eyelashes not only made Taylor's already striking eyes appear larger and more expressive, but they also created natural shadows and depth that enhanced her violet-blue eye color under studio lighting. While dystichiasis can sometimes cause medical complications for people who have it, including irritation or vision problems, Taylor never reported any negative effects from her condition. Instead, the extra lashes became an integral part of her iconic look and contributed significantly to her reputation as one of the most beautiful women in cinema history. Fact 2. She published a book at age 14. While most teenagers were focused on school and friends, 14-year-old Elizabeth Taylor was busy writing and illustrating her first published book. In 1946, MGM Studios released Nibbles and Me, a charming memoir about Taylor's beloved pet chipmunk, complete with her own hand-drawn illustrations and personal photographs of her adventures with her furry companion. The book came about during the height of Taylor's early fame following her breakout role in National Velvet, when MGM was eager to capitalize on their young star's popularity in every possible way. The studio not only published the book but also created paper dolls and coloring books featuring Taylor's likeness, turning her into a complete merchandising phenomenon at an age when most kids were just learning to drive. Taylor had caught 25 different chipmunks while filming on location, and she wrote about how each one had its own unique personality. Some were shy and timid while others were bold and mischievous. She even gave them individual names, including one particularly sassy little fellow she called Cheeky. But Nibbles was special and became her constant companion during the filming of several movies. The most amusing story from the book involves how Nibbles almost made his Hollywood debut in Courage of Lassie. Taylor had trained him so well and he was so perfectly behaved during rehearsals that the directors thought he looked fake and unrealistic on camera. His impeccable behavior actually cost him his shot at stardom because movie animals were expected to look a bit wild and unpredictable to appear authentic on screen. The book included 8 pages of photographs showing Taylor with Nibbles both on and off movie sets, including behind-the-scenes shots from National Velvet. Taylor wrote with remarkable wit and charm for someone so young, describing Nibbles as the nicest little pet and companion anyone could possibly have. Fact 3. She saved Montgomery Clift's life. On the foggy night of May 12, 1956, Elizabeth Taylor became a real-life hero when she saved the life of her close friend and co-star Montgomery Clift after a devastating car accident. The two actors had been filming Raintree County together and had just finished having dinner at Taylor's Beverly Hills home with her then-husband Michael Wilding when the unthinkable happened. Clift had left the dinner party around midnight with his friend Kevin McCarthy, who was driving in a separate car ahead of him down the winding, treacherous road that Taylor called a cork twister because of its dangerous hairpin turns. Within minutes of saying goodbye, McCarthy was back at Taylor's door with terrifying news. Clift had crashed his car into a telephone pole and was trapped inside the wreckage. Taylor immediately rushed to the accident scene and found Clift's car completely demolished, with the front door so badly damaged that it couldn't be opened. Without hesitation, she crawled through the back door of the destroyed vehicle and made her way to the front seat where Clift was trapped and bleeding heavily. When she reached him, he was conscious but making weak gestures toward his throat, indicating that something was seriously wrong. Taylor quickly realized that 2 of Clift's front teeth had been knocked out in the impact and had become lodged in the back of his throat, threatening to choke him to death. In a moment of incredible bravery and quick thinking, she reached into his mouth and carefully pulled out both teeth, one by one, clearing his airway and allowing him to breathe again. Her decisive action undoubtedly saved his life, as he would have suffocated before medical help could arrive. When photographers arrived at the scene, Taylor positioned herself between their cameras and Clift's stretcher, threatening to never allow them to photograph her again if they took pictures of his bloodied face. Fact 4. She nearly died 4 times during surgery. Elizabeth Taylor's most dramatic brush with death occurred during the chaotic production of Cleopatra in 1961, when a severe case of pneumonia brought her so close to dying that one news agency actually reported she had passed away. The incident began while filming was taking place at Pinewood Studios in England, where the harsh winter weather and demanding schedule had taken a serious toll on Taylor's already fragile health. What started as a simple cold quickly developed into life-threatening double pneumonia that left Taylor struggling to breathe. By March 4th of that year, her condition had become so critical that doctors were forced to perform an emergency tracheotomy, which involves cutting a hole directly into the windpipe to allow air to reach the lungs when normal breathing becomes impossible. The procedure was incredibly risky, and Taylor later revealed that during the surgery, she actually died 4 separate times on the operating table before doctors were able to revive her. She described having a genuine near-death experience, saying she actually saw the light during those terrifying moments when her heart stopped beating. The surgery left her with a prominent scar across her throat that would remain visible for the rest of her life, which she later referred to as her war wound, and wore with a strange sense of pride. The media coverage of Taylor's illness was so intense that when one news agency mistakenly reported her death, it created a worldwide panic among her millions of fans. Lloyd's of London Insurance Company ended up paying $2 million to cover her medical expenses, and the entire Cleopatra production was shut down for months while she recovered. 6 weeks after nearly dying, Taylor made a remarkable recovery and was well enough to attend the Academy Awards ceremony on April 17, 1961, where she won her first Oscar for Butterfield 8, with her tracheotomy scar still clearly visible on her neck. Fact 5. She won her first Oscar for her tracheotomy. Elizabeth Taylor was brutally honest about her first Academy Award win, openly admitting that she believed her 1961 Best Actress Oscar for Butterfield 8 was nothing more than a sympathy vote from Hollywood. In candid interviews recorded years later, Taylor bluntly stated that she won the award for her tracheotomy rather than her acting performance, because the film itself was absolutely terrible. The timing of her Oscar win couldn't have been more dramatic or suspicious in Taylor's own mind. She had been nominated for Best Actress 3 consecutive years before 1961 for her performances in Raintree County, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and Suddenly Last Summer, but had lost each time despite delivering powerful performances. Then came Butterfield 8, a film that Taylor herself despised and had been forced to make by MGM to fulfill her contract obligations. Taylor made no attempt to hide her feelings about the movie, calling it embarrassing and describing it with profanity that showed just how much she hated the project. She told interviewers that she had been made to do the film with what felt like a gun to her head, and that the dialogue was so bad it made her cringe. The role required her to play a high-end call girl in New York, but Taylor felt the script was poorly written and the character development was shallow. What made the Oscar win seem even more like a sympathy vote was the timing of the Academy's decision-making process, which coincided perfectly with Taylor's highly publicized near-death experience and emergency surgery. When she attended the ceremony with her tracheotomy scar still visible on her neck, the emotional impact on voters was undeniable. Even her fellow nominee Shirley MacLaine acknowledged the obvious, joking that she thought she might win until Elizabeth Taylor had her tracheotomy, making it clear that everyone in Hollywood understood what had really influenced the voting. Fact 6. Her wedding was a movie studio production. Elizabeth Taylor's first wedding in 1950 was less of a romantic ceremony and more of an elaborate Hollywood publicity stunt orchestrated entirely by MGM Studios. At just 18 years old, Taylor married Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., the heir to the Hilton Hotel fortune, in what the studio essentially turned into a massive promotional event for her upcoming film, Father of the Bride, which wouldn't even premiere until the following year. MGM spared no expense in creating what they called the social event of the year, providing Taylor with a stunning $3,500 wedding gown designed by the studio's chief costume designer, Helen Rose. The dress was a masterpiece of Hollywood glamour, featuring a high collar, long sleeves, and intricate pearl detailing, complete with a dramatic 15-foot train that required careful choreography to manage during the ceremony at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills. The studio's involvement extended far beyond just the dress, as MGM essentially treated the wedding like a movie set. They handpicked studio stock players to serve as Taylor's bridesmaids, ensuring that every person in the wedding party looked camera-ready and photogenic. Professional set designers were brought in to decorate the church with elaborate floral arrangements and lighting that would create the perfect backdrop for photographs and newsreel footage. The guest list read like a who's who of Hollywood royalty, with 700 attendees including major stars like Gene Kelly, Ginger Rogers, and Fred Astaire filling the pews. Outside the church, 3,000 screaming fans had gathered to catch a glimpse of their beloved star, creating a circus-like atmosphere that required police barriers and crowd control. MGM proudly boasted that the wedding featured more stars than there are in heaven, turning Taylor's personal milestone into a carefully orchestrated media spectacle that generated enormous publicity for both the studio and the young actress. Fact 7. She made Shirley MacLaine famous for losing. The 1961 Academy Awards ceremony became legendary, not just for Elizabeth Taylor's emotional win, but for one of the most quotable and brutally honest reactions in Oscar history from her defeated competitor, Shirley MacLaine. MacLaine had been nominated for Best Actress for her outstanding performance in The Apartment, widely considered one of the finest films of that year, and a role that many critics believed deserved recognition. MacLaine was confident about her chances going into the ceremony, having delivered what many considered a career-defining performance alongside Jack Lemmon in Billy Wilder's acclaimed comedy drama. Her portrayal of Fran Kubelik, an elevator operator caught in a complicated romantic situation, had earned widespread critical praise and seemed like a strong contender for the Academy's top acting honor. However, the odds shifted dramatically when Elizabeth Taylor's near-death experience and emergency surgery became front-page news just weeks before the voting deadline. The timing created an almost impossible situation for other nominees, as the entire entertainment industry and public were focused on Taylor's miraculous recovery and her brave appearance at the ceremony with her tracheotomy scar still visible. When Taylor's name was announced as the winner, MacLaine's immediate reaction became one of the most famous Oscar night quotes ever recorded. With characteristic wit and honesty, she told reporters that she had genuinely believed she might take home the award until Elizabeth Taylor had her tracheotomy, making it crystal clear that everyone in Hollywood understood exactly what had influenced the voting. MacLaine's perfectly timed quip captured what many people in the industry were thinking but were too polite to say out loud. Her comment became so famous that it's still quoted today whenever people discuss controversial Oscar wins or the influence of external factors on Academy voting. The line perfectly summed up the awkward reality that Taylor's medical emergency had essentially made it impossible for any other nominee to win that year. Fact 8. She voiced Baby Maggie on The Simpsons. Elizabeth Taylor made one of the most unexpected and hilarious voice acting appearances in television history when she provided the voice for Baby Maggie Simpson's first word on The Simpsons during the show's 4th season. The episode, titled Lisa's First Word, featured the memorable moment when the youngest Simpson family member finally speaks, saying "Daddy," in what was meant to be an adorable milestone for the cartoon baby. However, what should have been a simple recording session turned into a comedy of errors because of Taylor's naturally sultry and seductive speaking voice. The legendary actress, known for her smoldering performances in films like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, found it nearly impossible to make the single word "daddy" sound like it was coming from an innocent baby rather than a grown woman with romantic intentions. Producer Mike Rice later revealed the amusing behind-the-scenes struggle, explaining that Taylor had to record the line 6 separate times because her delivery kept coming out far too sexy for a baby character. Each time she said "daddy," It sounded more like a seductive whisper than the innocent babbling of a one-year-old child, creating an unintentionally inappropriate tone that was completely wrong for the scene. The production team found themselves in the awkward position of having to repeatedly remind one of Hollywood's most respected actresses that she needed to remember she was playing a baby talking to her father, not a woman trying to seduce a man. Taylor, who was a good sport about the entire situation, kept trying different approaches to make her voice sound more childlike and less alluring. Eventually, after multiple attempts and coaching from the directors, Taylor managed to deliver the line in a way that sounded appropriately innocent for baby Maggie. The episode became a classic, and Taylor's brief but memorable contribution to the long-running animated series remains one of the most unusual voice acting challenges in television history. Fact 9. Her eye color was medically impossible. Elizabeth Taylor's famous violet eyes have been the subject of fascination and debate for decades, but the truth is that true violet eye color is so rare, it's practically medically impossible for most people to have naturally. According to medical experts and ophthalmologists, authentic violet or purple eyes are found in less than 1% of the world's population and typically only occur in people who have albinism, a genetic condition that dramatically reduces pigment production throughout the body. The science behind eye color involves melanin, the same pigment that determines skin and hair color. And the amount of melanin in the iris directly affects what color our eyes appear to be. People with brown eyes have lots of melanin, while those with blue or green eyes have much less of this natural pigment. For eyes to appear truly violet, there needs to be an extremely specific and rare combination of minimal melanin that allows light to scatter in just the right way to create that purple appearance. Taylor did not have albinism, and never reported any of the vision problems that typically come with that condition, which makes it highly unlikely that her eyes were genuinely violet in the medical sense. Instead, eye experts believe she had an extraordinarily rare shade of deep blue that could appear violet or purple under certain lighting conditions, especially when enhanced by her makeup choices and wardrobe. Ophthalmic surgeon Dr. Norman Safra explained that there are various shades of blues and grays, with many colors in between, and that Taylor's eyes may have had just the right amount of melanin to create what appeared to be violet pigmentation. The effect was likely enhanced by her strategic use of blue and purple eyeshadows throughout her career, which would have brought out any violet tones in her naturally blue eyes. Even today, many photographs of Taylor show eyes that look distinctly blue rather than purple, suggesting that the violet appearance was partly due to lighting, makeup, and the mystique that surrounded her legendary beauty. Fact 10. She was late to her own funeral. Even in death, Elizabeth Taylor managed to make a memorable entrance by arriving fashionably late to her own funeral service. When the legendary actress passed away on March 23, 2011, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles at the age of 79, she had left behind very specific instructions about how her final farewell should be conducted, including one particularly characteristic detail that perfectly captured her lifelong personality. Taylor's funeral took place the following day at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, in a private Jewish ceremony presided over by Rabbi Jerome Cutler. The service was meant to be an intimate gathering for family and close friends, befitting someone who had lived such a public life, but wanted her final moments to be personal and meaningful. However, those who arrived at the scheduled time found themselves waiting longer than expected, and for a very deliberate reason. According to Taylor's official representative, the ceremony was intentionally delayed by exactly 15 minutes because Taylor had specifically requested that her funeral start late. The representative explained this unusual instruction by saying that she even wanted to be late for her own funeral, staying true to her reputation for dramatic timing right until the very end. This final act of rebellion against punctuality was completely in character for Taylor, who had spent decades keeping directors, co-stars, and audiences waiting throughout her career. Whether it was arriving on movie sets, attending premieres, or showing up for important meetings, Taylor had made tardiness into something of a personal trademark, often claiming that fashionable lateness was simply part of her style. The 15-minute delay became one of the most talked-about aspects of her funeral, with many mourners and media outlets noting how perfectly it summed up Taylor's approach to life. Even her final goodbye reflected her belief that some things were worth waiting for, and that a true star should never rush her entrance, even when that entrance was her last. Fact 11. She built a perfume empire bigger than her movies. Elizabeth Taylor's greatest financial success came not from her legendary film career, but from an unexpected venture into the fragrance industry that turned her into one of the wealthiest entertainers of all time. Starting in 1987 when she launched her first perfume called Passion in collaboration with Elizabeth Arden, Taylor created a business empire that would ultimately earn her more money than all of her movie roles combined throughout her entire six-decade acting career. Taylor was one of the first major celebrities to recognize the potential of putting her name on beauty products, pioneering what would later become a standard practice for famous personalities across all industries. Her timing was perfect, as she entered the fragrance market just as consumers were becoming interested in celebrity-branded products, and her iconic status gave her perfumes an immediate appeal that competitors couldn't match. The success of Passion led to an entire collection of fragrances, including the massively popular White Diamonds in 1991, which became one of the best-selling celebrity perfumes of all time. Taylor personally supervised the creation and production of each of the 11 fragrances that would eventually be marketed under her name, working closely with master perfumers to ensure that every scent met her exacting standards and reflected her sophisticated taste. By the time of Taylor's death in 2011, industry experts estimated that her fragrance empire comprised the majority of her $600 million to $1 billion estate. According to biographers Sam Kashner and Nancy Schoenberger, the revenue from her perfume collection had surpassed everything she had earned during her entire acting career, including her groundbreaking $1 million salary for Cleopatra and all her subsequent film paychecks. The British newspaper The Guardian reported that Taylor's business acumen in the fragrance industry had proven far more lucrative than her Hollywood success, transforming her from a highly paid actress into a genuine business mogul whose products continued generating revenue long after her retirement from films. Fact 12. She was accused of wearing fake eyelashes at age 9. One of the earliest signs that Elizabeth Taylor was destined for stardom came during the filming of Lassie Come Home in 1943, when a cameraman made an accusation that would become part of Hollywood legend. The 9-year-old Taylor was working on what would become her breakthrough role when a member of the film crew noticed something unusual about her appearance that seemed impossible for such a young child. The cameraman was convinced that Taylor was wearing an excessive amount of dark, thick mascara around her eyes, creating an effect that looked far too sophisticated and dramatic for a child actor. In the 1940s, it was extremely unusual for young performers to wear heavy makeup, and the crew member believed that someone had made a serious mistake in preparing Taylor for her scenes. Concerned that the young actress was inappropriately made up for her role, the cameraman approached Taylor and began attempting to clean what he assumed was fake enhancement from her eyelashes. He was determined to remove what he thought was an obvious makeup error that would ruin the natural, innocent look that the film required for her character. However, as he tried to wipe away the supposed mascara, the cameraman quickly discovered that there was nothing artificial about Taylor's dramatic lashes. The thick, dark fringe around her eyes was completely natural, and no amount of cleaning could remove what wasn't there in the first place. The incident left the crew member embarrassed and amazed, as he had never encountered a child with such naturally striking and voluminous eyelashes. The moment was witnessed by Taylor's co-star Roddy McDowall, who would later remember the incident with wonder, remarking that only someone who was absolutely born to be on the big screen could possibly have been blessed with such extraordinary natural features. This early encounter perfectly foreshadowed how Taylor's unique physical characteristics would captivate audiences and define her career for decades to come. Fact 13. She locked herself in a bathroom on her wedding night. Despite all the glamour and publicity surrounding her elaborate wedding to Conrad Hilton Jr. in 1950, 18-year-old Elizabeth Taylor found herself completely unprepared for the reality of married life when the cameras stopped rolling and the guests went home. In candid interviews recorded years later, Taylor revealed one of the most embarrassing and vulnerable moments from her early life, admitting that she was so terrified about her wedding night that she literally locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out. Taylor had grown up in the highly protected environment of Hollywood's studio system, where MGM carefully controlled every aspect of her life and kept her sheltered from adult experiences, despite casting her in romantic roles on screen. Although she had played characters who were in love and had even performed kissing scenes in movies, her real-life experience with romance and physical intimacy was extremely limited, leaving her completely overwhelmed when faced with the expectations of marriage. The young actress was so scared and anxious about consummating her marriage that she barricaded herself in the bathroom and stayed there, leaving her new husband confused and frustrated on the other side of the door. Taylor later described the situation with surprising humor, explaining that absolutely nothing happened between her and Hilton for 3 entire days after their wedding, because she was too frightened to emerge from her self-imposed hiding place. Eventually, Taylor admitted that she only found the courage to face her marital responsibilities after discovering what she called liquid courage, meaning she had to drink alcohol to calm her nerves enough to go through with the physical aspects of marriage. Her honesty about this deeply personal struggle revealed just how young and inexperienced she really was, despite being one of the most famous actresses in the world. The incident highlighted the strange contradiction of Taylor's life at that time. She was mature enough to handle a demanding film career but still just a scared teenager when it came to real-life intimate relationships. Fact 14. She converted to Judaism before marrying Jewish men. In 1959, Elizabeth Taylor made a deeply personal religious decision that surprised many people in Hollywood when she formally converted to Judaism, a choice that she insisted had absolutely nothing to do with the Jewish men in her romantic life. Taylor had been raised as a Christian Scientist, but at the age of 27, she underwent a serious religious conversion process that involved extensive study and genuine spiritual commitment. The conversion took place at Temple Israel of Hollywood, where Taylor spent considerable time studying Torah, Jewish history, and religious traditions under the guidance of Rabbi Max Nussbaum. This wasn't a casual or superficial change made for convenience. Taylor dedicated herself to learning the complexities of Jewish law, customs, and beliefs before making her final commitment to the faith. As part of the traditional conversion process, Taylor received a Hebrew name to replace her English one, becoming Elisheba Rachel in Jewish religious contexts. The name Elisheba is the Hebrew equivalent of Elizabeth, while Rachel was chosen as a reference to Jacob's second wife in the Torah, connecting Taylor to one of the most important female figures in Jewish biblical history. However, Taylor's conversion became the subject of considerable speculation and gossip because of the timing and her romantic relationships. She had been married to producer Mike Todd, who was Jewish, and after his tragic death in a plane crash, she began a highly publicized relationship with singer Eddie Fisher, who was also Jewish. Many people assumed that her religious conversion was motivated by a desire to fit in with the Jewish men in her life. Taylor consistently and firmly denied these assumptions, stating publicly that Judaism had absolutely nothing to do with her past marriage to Mike Todd or her upcoming marriage to Eddie Fisher. She maintained that her conversion was based on a genuine spiritual calling and personal belief, rather than any romantic considerations, emphasizing that she had always felt drawn to Jewish teachings and traditions. Fact 15. She won Most Memorable Eyebrows against a dog. In one of the most bizarre beauty contests in entertainment history, Elizabeth Taylor found herself competing against a famous canine actor for recognition of her facial features when she won the title of Most Memorable Eyebrows in a magazine poll conducted in 1976. This unusual honor came at a time when Taylor was in her 40s and had already established herself as one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, but the competition she faced was unlike anything most celebrities would ever encounter. The magazine poll that created this strange beauty contest was apparently designed to celebrate distinctive facial features across all of entertainment, which explains how both human actors and animal performers ended up being considered for the same award. Taylor's thick, naturally dark eyebrows had been a defining feature of her look throughout her entire career, framing her famous eyes and contributing to her intense, dramatic screen presence that had captivated audiences for decades. However, the competition was surprisingly stiff, as the first runner-up in the eyebrow contest was none other than Lassie, the famous collie who had starred in countless movies and television episodes since the 1940s. Lassie's distinctive facial markings, particularly the dark fur pattern around the eyes that resembled prominent eyebrows, had apparently made a strong impression on voters who were asked to choose the most memorable brow appearance in show business. The fact that Taylor managed to beat out a beloved animal star for this peculiar honor speaks to just how iconic her facial features had become in popular culture. The contest results suggest that her eyebrows were so distinctive and well-known that they could triumph over even the most famous four-legged competitor in Hollywood history. The award also highlighted the playful nature of celebrity culture in the 1970s, when magazines were willing to create lighthearted contests that mixed serious movie stars with animal actors, creating entertainment value from unexpected comparisons that would never be taken too seriously by anyone involved.